Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an intuitive coach and mentor,
And I'm Louisa. I'm an awakening coach and energy healer.
and we're your spiritual besties.
We're just everyday women having an extraordinary human experience.
You see, we've both been led down the path of amazing discoveries through the power of spirituality.
So, we're here to share our experiences as we dive deep into all things sacred.
Our hope is that we can contribute to the collective conversation to help you feel less alone and more confident as you walk the path to becoming more connected with the universe.
We'd love for you to join us each week as we share our discoveries and navigate this journey together.
Okay, so I was thinking about how this has been a theme for me, and each time it comes up, I have to remind myself and stay on track that this is what's likely happening again, is that the most progress and the most leaps in my spirituality, in my business, in my life in general come after like the hardest times. I just got this oracle card the other day that it said it so much more eloquently than what I'm saying it. But the card was called like after the storm or after the rain. And it was this whole concept of, and what's funny is that at the time, I was just like, okay, this doesn't necessarily like ring true for me, but I was sort of in this really, really tough space and was like, okay, like it's coming to an end, right? Is it going to end? Like, I hope
Oh,
that this is a sign that this is almost over for me. But it was just this idea that, essentially it's like the rainbow after the storm, that if you can get through and weather the tough times, that's how you essentially break through to this next level. And, as you and I were talking, it really started feeling like, okay, this is something that's happening, I think, collectively in this spiritual space, potentially related to this paradigm shift, this new paradigm that's coming. But I do feel like even if it's not collective, even if it's not sort of happening on this larger scale, I think that it is always something to think about and remember that the biggest growth, the biggest leaps come after the hardest times, after you feel like you've hit a wall and you're struggling so hard. And I
yeah.
mean, it could truly just be because if you push through that, if you get through whatever it is you're struggling with in that time, you're going to have grown, right? You're going to have progressed in some way, learned some sort of lesson, right? Like
Yes.
that's how life works. But I don't know, I'm getting the sense that it might be something related to this paradigm shift. And
Yeah. I think that those difficult times, right? Like what tends to happen is those times where we're like, which I've also been experiencing as we talked about, is those times where it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, where it's like, am I even in a tunnel or am I just like permanently,
floating out somewhere else, like I'm not even on track anymore.
it's like I'm not even, yeah, I'm completely off track. I'm not, there's nowhere that I am going. I just, during those times, it's always important to remember that what I think is happening is a new version of ourselves, right? Like that growth that you mentioned, a new version of ourselves is kind of coming about, right? It's like, I think of the lioness a lot. I used to have her on my wall because it's like those are the times where it's important for us to bring her out, bring out that lioness in us, and to be able to remember that no matter what it is that at the time as a lion may feel like an attack,
Mhm.
it's like we have all of the tools, everything that we need to get through into the other side of that tunnel, we actually just have within us, right? And I think it's a moment where, which never feels like a moment, always feels like a lifetime when we're
Yeah,
going through
a
these
long time.
difficult times. Like we were just talking about it. We both experienced this for like a week, right? It's been a few weeks for me at different depths, but for this period of time that actually for me probably feels like a lifetime. It feels like probably a whole year of these feelings of the intensity of feeling like, oh my God, is there one more thing that could happen that I could handle? And usually in that moment, the answer for me is always no. I just couldn't handle another thing. And then there's like another chip that's put on top, and it's like, okay, so I can handle that. After, of course, the pain, the grief, the all the things that happen within that process of actually coming into awareness of it, first of all, and then accepting it, and then acknowledging it and working through it, and then actually embodying it and being like, okay, this is what it is. This is how I'm going to move forward with it. This is how I'm going to implement it into this new aspect of myself that I now have become because of the situation or because of the circumstance. But I think it's important to remember that we have the tools within us, like we have everything that we need within us, right? As a lioness, you're always strong enough. You're always able to handle it. It's just a matter of how are you going to handle it? And did you learn from your last situation? Did you learn from the last time that you were in this situation? Because I think that's the objective is always growth. That's what our soul is seeking, right? I always think
Mhm.
what are those at soul level? What are those situations? And it's our soul literally saying, I want growth. I want to expand. I want to learn more. I want to evolve. I want to experience what I came here to experience in this lifetime. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of that is around lessons that are not easy to navigate most of the time.
No. And as you were talking and saying, these tools are within us and we have them, we have the tools to get through this. It's almost as if there are just these moments in life where you're forced to find them, right? You're forced to uncover more of your capacity, more of what you're actually capable of doing in this life and what you're capable of getting through. And so there are these difficult times where you need to dig deep and find that within you, this ability to work through it and get through it and come out the other side so that you have this capacity.
Yeah.
And I think that is just that's what happens. And it's to me, it never really feels quite like that analogy of the rainbow after the storm because it's not like all of a sudden I'm just through it and then boom, everything's bright and shiny, right? Like
Which
it's
would be
more of
nice.
like, yeah, it's more of like you mentioned, it's these sort of levels of progression through it. And once you have now discovered and unearthed this new capacity, this new version of you that is able to come out the other side of it, there is a period of mourning or feeling just sad, sorrowful about, this prior version of you that can kind of no longer exist now that you have worked your way through this difficult challenge and found this newer version of you who's capable of more. And I think because in some ways it's harder. Like it is harder to then know I am capable of all of this and I do need to now move through life in this way. And this is kind of harder in some ways to be this new version of me. And so there's sort of this pain of, the good old days. In some ways,
Yes, that's
like,
exactly what it feels
right?
like.
Like, oh, the good old days when I could just
Exactly. Yes.
be this version of me that just felt so much easier. And I
Yes.
mean, eventually that's the thing, that's how growth happens, right? Eventually, this version feels easier.
Yes.
But I think this is that part where it's just this doesn't feel easier. This doesn't
At all.
feel better. I know, logically, I think what is happening here, what's happened, I'm progressing to this sort of next level, next version, but doesn't feel great in the moment. And so that's why I said I feel like it's never truly felt like that analogy of this rainbow after the storm. It's like I get through it and I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
It's so true, and right, and you mentioned the steps, and it made me think of stairs, right? And it's exactly it.
Mhm.
It's almost like you ascend, right? You climb all these stairs, you get to this floor,
Mhm.
and then at the next floor, you're at the bottom. You start at the bottom right before you have to climb through all the steps to get to the next floor. And so it's kind of like this ascension and descension process, right? It's like I ascend and then it's like I descend is what it feels like, because it's what
Right.
it feels like. That's not what's happening, but it's what it feels like. And it feels so hard. It's so, that 3D, like you mentioned, is like that grief, that sadness, because it is that death of that version of who you were, or certain aspects of who you were. They can't come with you. They can't come to the new version of who you are. They can't come with you into the new world. They can't come into the new paradigm. Those things we shed those out, all those negative emotions, feelings, thoughts, and they can't come with you. And like we talked about before, there is that death that occurs, but it's hard to in the moment, because I feel like I don't feel I'm in it. I am
Mhm.
in it right now. In this iteration of it, for me, there's a lot of there's a lot of numbness is what it feels like. A lot of numbness instead of having the high and low emotions, right? Because they're so heightened sometimes is the way that I've experienced it for the most part. The emotions just being really heightened. And so then I'm really emotional, really like releasing a lot of crying. In this iteration for me, I allowed myself like 3 days, I cried it out, and then I'm like, okay. And then what has happened has been, and it's not that I'm numb because I'm aware of what's happening, but I'm feeling it a lot more like this. And I don't know the words for this, but it's more of a flat line where I'm processing it. I realize that I'm processing it. And I think maybe this is the acceptance, is maybe this is what the acceptance looks like,
Mhm.
or the embodying it. But both are hard. Both are hard. The rainbow did not come immediately after going through the hardest part. It's
Mhm.
not here yet. I know that it's coming. I understand what's happening. I understand what has transpired. But I think it's important to remember that. I love that you mentioned that, because I think that often, and I used to at the beginning of my awakening, always think, well, now I'm on the other side, and why isn't it easy now? It should be easy. It's supposed to be easy. I got through it. So now it's supposed to be easy. And it just hasn't been that way. And the more and more I say iteration, because the more and more this happens, it's like it doesn't actually feel that way. That's not the way that it usually works. When I have gotten to enjoy the moments of it, when I get to the other side and when I do see
Mhm.
the rainbow, I see it for a little bit before it's time to ascend again. And then you go through the process again, and you evolve and you grow and you harness that new version of yourself that's stronger, usually comes with more responsibility in one way or another, right? Because
Yep.
when you know better, you do better,
Yep.
sort of thing.
And that's, I think it is this whole process of leveling up, embodying the new version, and, basically this idea that it's not about this end result, it's about who you become along the way. And I know, I've talked about this multiple times here and had this conversation before, but it truly is all about who you're becoming along the way on the journey. The end result they are after, that goal they are after, is sort of more so the catalyst, right? That is the thing that actually drives you to go on this journey, to go on this path of ascension, of becoming this different version of you, to learning the lessons that your soul came here to learn. It's like the goal really is just that catalyst. It's not about the goal. It's about learning the lessons that you came here to learn and being able to embody this new version of yourself that you have a desire within you to become. And it's really hard to let go of the attachment to that goal and not necessarily enjoy, but embrace the
Right.
journey to getting there and to allow it and to let it happen. Because I think so many times, and this I think is one of the reasons that some of these storms feel a little darker than others, is because we don't allow it. We don't allow it to happen. We fight it. We fight it so hard because we fight for this previous version of us
Yes.
that we want to hold on to, that we want to keep. And
Yeah,
so,
and I think ultimately for me, a great reminder lately has been, I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And
Mhm.
the more I try to harness and make that human experience what I want it to be from a human perspective, I think the harder it is. But when I can surrender and remember that I'm here on a spiritual journey, I'm having a human experience as part of my spiritual journey, then that makes it a little easier to keep going.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap for this episode.
We hope you found some inspiration, a helpful tip, or maybe just a good laugh.
Remember, amazing human, you are not alone on this path to connect with your inner wisdom and the universe.
To stay connected and keep the conversation going, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might find value in it. Until next time.